The North African desert, endless sand, blistering heat, wine that carves the land into waves of dust. From 1941 to 1943, this was the battlefield of one of World War II's most remarkable campaigns, and in the middle of it all stood the Afrika Korps. They came as a rescue mission, but they left behind a legend, known for speed, aggression, and brilliant tactics. The Afrika Korps would face overwhelming odds in a war of survival beneath the desert sun. At the start of 1941, Italy's colonial campaign in Africa was falling apart. Their invasion of Egypt had failed. British and Commonwealth forces were pushing them back fast. Italian units surrendered by the thousands. To save the situation, Hitler sent help. A limited force, just one cause. But it would change the Desert War completely. This was the Deutsches Afrika Korps. The German Afrika Korps sent to support Italy, and leading them was General Erwin Rommel. Rommel was no ordinary commander. In the First World War, he earned respect for courage and daring. In 1940, he commanded the 7th Panzer Division during the invasion of France. His unit moved so fast, German high command lost track of him. That's how he got the nickname, the Ghost Division. Rommel was known for taking risks. He led from the front, he listened to his troops, and he made decisions quickly. When he landed in Libya in February 1941, he was told to hold the line. Instead, he attacked. In March, Rommel launched a surprise offensive. British forces weren't expecting it. Within weeks, they were in full retreat. Rommel pushed them back over 500 miles to the Egyptian border. He surrounded the key port city of Tobruk. The Axis suddenly had the upper hand. The Afrika Korps had arrived. For the next 2 years, both sides fought over the same ground again and again. Names like Tobruk, Crusader, and El Alamein became legendary. The desert was no ordinary battlefield. There was nowhere to hide. No trees, no cover, only open sand. Heat and dust damaged engines and wore men down. Navigation was difficult. Conditions were harsh. Still, the Afrika Korps adapted fast. They didn't rely on huge numbers. They relied on speed, on surprise, on coordination between tanks, infantry, and artillery. Rommel was always on the move. He visited the front himself. He watched enemy positions with binoculars. He made decisions on the spot. That's how he earned his nickname from the British, the Desert Fox. But even Rommel had limits. The Afrika Korps was always low on fuel. Supplies had to come by sea. Allied aircraft and ships targeted German convoys. Many never made it. Those that did had to cross hundreds of miles of desert roads to reach the front. Meanwhile, British forces were growing. Reinforcements came from Australia, New Zealand, India, and South Africa. The British built better tanks. They improved their coordination, and they learned how to fight in the desert. In late 1941, they launched Operation Crusader. Their goal was to relieve Tobruk. The fighting was fierce. Rommel counterattacked several times, but in the end, the Allies broke the siege. The Afrika Korps fell back, but Rommel wasn't done. In January 1942, he struck again. His forces retook Benghazi. They pushed across Libya. By June, they reached El Alamein, just 60 miles from Alexandria and the Suez Canal. If Rommel broke through, he could cut off Britain's link to India and the Middle East. But the British had a new commander, Bernard Montgomery. Montgomery was cautious. He wasn't flashy like Rommel, but he was patient. He trained his troops carefully. He built up massive supplies, and when he was ready, he struck. In October 1942, Montgomery launched the Second Battle of El Alamein. The fighting lasted nearly 2 weeks. Artillery pounded Axis lines day and night. Allied tanks pushed through minefields and barbed wire. The Afrika Korps was tough, but they couldn't hold. They ran out of fuel. They ran out of ammo. And finally, they ran out of room to retreat. Rommel ordered a withdrawal. The dream of reaching the Suez Canal was over. But the real disaster came just days later. On November 8, 1942, Allied forces landed in Morocco and Algeria. This was Operation Torch. British and American troops were now attacking from the west. Rommel was trapped between two advancing armies. He regrouped in Tunisia and dug in. The terrain was better there. Hills, ridges, rocky passes. The Afrika Korps launched ambushes and defensive fights. They held back US forces at the Kasserine Pass, but they were fighting a losing battle. In May 1943, Axis forces in Tunisia surrendered. Over 250,000 German and Italian troops laid down their arms. The North African campaign was over. Rommel wasn't captured. Hitler had recalled him weeks earlier. He would later be assigned to defend the coast of France. In 1944, he was connected to the plot to kill Hitler. The regime forced him to take poison. He died in October that year. The Afrika Korps had existed for just over 2 years, but their impact on modern warfare was huge. Rommel's tactics, fast, flexible, and unpredictable, became a model for armored warfare. Military schools still study his desert campaigns. But the legend of the Afrika Korps also hides a darker truth. They fought under the Nazi flag. Rommel may not have been a Nazi, but he served Hitler. He helped prolong a war of conquest. And even though the Afrika Korps avoided many of the atrocities seen elsewhere, they were part of that system. Still, there was something different about the desert campaign. It was brutal, but there was respect between enemies. Rommel was admired by many of those who fought against him, and the Afrika Korps carried out their orders with discipline and professionalism. Even in defeat, the desert itself was a force in the war. Sandstorms, heat waves, freezing nights, engines failed, radios broke down, water ran low. Every movement had to be planned. Every mistake was punished by nature. The story of the Afrika Korps is one of speed and ambition, of bold attacks and bitter retreats, of brilliance on the battlefield and disaster off it. They were never large in number. They never had enough fuel or food. But for a time, they held their own against far greater forces. Today, rusted tanks still lie buried beneath the sand. The battlefields are quiet, but the story of the Afrika Korps continues to echo through the pages of history. But ultimately, it was the Allied victory in North Africa that changed the course of the war. It proved that the Axis war machine could be beaten in open battle. It protected the Suez Canal, opened the door to the invasion of Italy, and gave hope to a world fighting against tyranny. The outcome in North Africa wasn't just strategic, it was symbolic. It marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the History Front for more stories from the past, stories of strategy, sacrifice, and survival.